Distribution provided by Cloud Sigma, the cloud that adapts to you. Visit cloudsigma.com/thisweekend for a free $200 credit.
Hey everybody, today it's how do I improve my web design. I'm Aure, I'm filling in for Jose who's taking a break today to direct in the booth. So today we're going to work on your web designs and help you improve them. Stick around and watch me work. Hey everyone, this is episode 37. I'm Aure Gimmon. I am a freelance creative director. You can find my work at auregimmon.com. In the booth we have Jose who will be joining us. Hey Jose. Got it. So how do I improve my web design is the theme for today. We're going to get right into it because I can't talk as much as Jose says in the script.
Be careful with what you're saying there.
Alrighty. So let's go for it. We have two sites that were submitted. The first is from our viewer Adam Parrott in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. It's an auto parts site called New Parts. So I have it up on my screen now.
Wow, is that ugly or what?
Trash talking.
Yeah. What's the second one, Aure?
The second one is from Joe Bolton in Brisbane, Australia. It's Delicious Improvements.
It's not too bad.
There it is right there. Looks a little bit like the launch site, I have to say.
Yes, it does. We'll talk more about that. Keep on.
So here are some questions that we have. We're going to ask, what is working with these designs? What things can be improved? And can you show us how to make our designs better?
So why don't we get started with the first question? Let's talk about what's working for the designs and, bring up the first one.
Sounds great. So here's the first design. I have it on my screen now. So what is working and what is not? I mean, I think right off the bat, it has pretty much everything that it needs. It's got, the top branding area is pretty distinct. There's a slideshow across the top that's giving you some quick bit of information there about what they're offering. Banner about overnight shipping, which I guess is something really important for the business. And then it's got a bit of, just some entry points as far as, some things about the company, fast shipping, easy ordering process. So a lot of the information is there that I would normally expect to see when I arrive on a site like this. I think potentially all I would do is maybe rearrange it a little bit and make it look a little bit more, just have a little bit more pizzazz. What do you think, Jose?
I agree with you 100% everything you said. It's clean, it works, it's organized, it doesn't have any major typographic mistakes or errors. It works. It looks like it's a Drupal template, and you're using it pretty straight out of the box and trying not to mess it up. So I think that overall, he did a good job. Is it a sink or swim? That's a tough one. I think if we were to give it sink or swim in our regular sink or swim, I would definitely not give it a swim at a design standpoint.
Right.
But I would definitely not sink it because if it works, it works. So
it's got the right content. I think you mentioned there was a developer that designed it and built it in Drupal.
Yeah, it was a developer, I think, and it's someone. Again, you can check out the Adam Parrott. His Twitter is Adam Parrott 13, just spelled like it sounds.
Adam Parrott 13. Yes.
This is Twitter from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, the
city
of Steel, ladies and gentlemen.
Yes, the Steel City.
Today's show is kind of interesting because A, you're hosting, and B, we're going to bust out some design and actually make it work.
That's right.
So you've prepared some stuff. And can you tell our audience a little bit about your process? What are you thinking when you see this and you're saying, I need to improve it? What is the first thing that comes to mind?
I think as soon as I see this, I'm like, well, it needs to look a little bit more like the sites that are being done out there today, just more color and bigger typography. Not using Arial or Helvetica would be a big one. There are just so many options out there now that if you just go with the default fonts, it just looks a little dated and bland. So that's definitely something I would look at. But I think overall, just to think about the story as well a little bit, as far as the color palette selection and just making it look a little bit more contemporary is what I would say. What do you think?
I agree. I think that those are all really good. The things that I think we could improve, we can improve for sure the color and personality of the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, the name is kind of concerning to me, even though I know you can probably not change it, but New Parts is a little too generic. It's not something that it might show up well in SEO, but it might not be memorable enough. I can't tell startups or people enough times that, the more generic your name is, even though you think it's really smart and clever because it says exactly what you are, the least memorable you are and the harder it is for people to find you. Unless you're only looking to get people from search. If you want people to remember your name organically, meaning like, oh, you know what, I was thinking of the New Parts place, that place called Yo-Yo or whatever.
Yeah,
the hell the name is.
totally. I mean, I think that's a really good point. I think made-up names are always the best because they stick in people's heads. I think New Parts.
Yeah, left brain people will usually say, well, the logical thing is that because of SEO, this is what it should be.
Right.
But, it's not right. But, more importantly, how do you improve the messaging? For this site, I think we should just get it a little bit of TLC, some Aure love, and just make it better.
I agree.
Just let's, and the third question, of course, is how can you show us how to make our designs better, which is the theme of the show. So Aure, take it away, and start busting out and designing on this one.
Absolutely.
Show us your process.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, I think the first thing I did, particularly with this one, I sort of pre-cooked it a little bit before the show, but the first thing I did was, just think about the story that I wanted to tell. First thing that jumped out at me was, well, it's auto parts and mechanics, so, I thought like, big gears and metal and overalls and that whole thing. So I've got a design here that I put together. I'm just going to bust it out right off the bat, and I want to show you guys and talk through a little bit of the things that I did. I went through a couple of sites. First one being, Color Lovers, which I love. Color Lovers is a site that I use a lot. This is one of the first things I did was just look for, and I think I put like mechanic or something, and I have the actual color palette that I'll show you guys. So, I just started going through a couple of options as far as colors, and I picked one. I'm going to open it up for you guys right now. And there it is. That's the one I picked. I thought it was just very, speaking again to that sort of very mechanical, the steel grays and the blues. Thinking again, I don't know why I keep thinking of overalls and just mechanics and that sort of thing. So that's sort of what I was trying to do there. Picked a couple fonts that were, just very bold. Again, not using anything default like Helvetica or anything like that. Trying to stay away from that. And overall, just trying to make it, again, I'm thinking, just big gears and engine parts and just stuff that's, just very, it speaks to me as being very bold. And you can see that a little bit in the typography. I picked this font here, which is actually a web font. Oh, okay, so that's another thing that I did. I love Google web fonts because they work. Let me just.
Yeah, I recently started using Google web fonts, and I realized that you can use them for Google Docs. Isn't that crazy?
They're amazing.
Like you can use your Google web fonts inside your Google Docs and make your Google Docs look really cool.
Yes, I think that's really good. And I'm using a WordPress template on my site that you can actually just put the name of the Google font and it'll just display. You don't even have to touch code. It's fantastic.
Damn.
The way that it's being integrated. Oh yeah, it's just so I literally this is what I did. I went into Google Fonts and I put like really chunky fonts, and then I just started going through, and at some point the one that I picked kind of jumped out at me. It's called Passion, so it's got to be in here somewhere. Let me just type it in.
Chunky is good.
Chunky is good. And
totally ironically, I just used that same font recently on something in Google Docs.
Passion, well, it's not coming up, but it is a Google
I don't think
web
it's called
font.
Passion. Is it a chunky one that looks kind of like the Skool font, like the This Weekend?
Let me just go back to.
Just check it out in your
it's called Passion Bold. I have it in my font book. But in any case, I went to Google Web Fonts, did a search for like something that felt just really thick, very bold. I found that one. It's very easy to download. All you do once you select the font. Oh, look, here it is, Passion 1. There it is. All you have to do is just click on the Add to Collection button on the far right. It gives you this kind of blue field at the bottom, and then you just say Use. And it's going to bring up this page, which has got the selection of the font that you want, and then you just have this link up here. It says download your collection, and that'll basically let you download a font that you can install in Fontbook in macOS 10, and then you can actually use it. So there it is. I downloaded this font. This is another font that I had that's not exactly a web font, but I do know that there is a replacement for it, and I can get the name later on in the show. I just use this because I had it. So, again, the really thick font and the slab serif I felt gave that just very bold, kind of in your face, just language as far as the typography. So I just basically I comped it up based on that. Pretty much the same structure. It's got.
Can you show us your layers and like how
the layers are not the cleanest because I was just kind of going through this really quickly, but I basically just structured it pretty much the same way that he had. He's got the header across the top, the logo. It's still got the same name. Didn't really want to go into that too much as far as like changing the name of the company. It's always a little bit tricky, but I took the gears out from between the words because it made it look kind of broken. So I just put the words together and changed the color just to kind of emphasize that it is 2 words but not compromising legibility. So I put the gears at the end. Again, just a very simple shift, not even going too far from what it already is.
All right, can you show the side to side of the
Absolutely.
Both of the designs? Because something that I want to bring up as a question for you is, okay, so he's a developer, not necessarily, how does a developer or someone who's more code oriented or who might be a new developer begin to make the look and feel look like what you're doing? Because he might freak out, from oh crap, now I got to make Drupal look like this, right?
Right.
Drupal, as you know well, we've done a lot of Drupal sites. You got to smack it around or be a very experienced Drupal developer.
Yeah.
But you really didn't change a lot in terms of structure.
The structure is essentially the same. I think one thing that I did is I made it go the full width of the page, which I think is something that makes sites look just very open and contemporary. Everybody's pretty much doing that. The big images, the big fonts, and then things going from side to side. The pages that are contained on the edges, like this one is, that's not really what I go for, especially these days. But the structure is pretty much the same, and I don't anticipate it would be an issue implementing what I've done in Drupal, even though you're right. I think that the developers that we've spoken to that can actually manipulate Drupal really well are experienced folks.
Well, you can even do it really basic. You can make the background, that blue. You can make the images bigger. You can make the header that gray. You can do a lot of things to kind of get it close to where you are. You don't have to go 100% to the design, even though that's a travesty for me to be saying that when designers are like, well, I want it to look exactly the same. Anyhow, but this is great. It looks beautiful, and I think that
Thank you.
If people knew how quickly you do that, you did that. And I want to also reemphasize to people that, look, what we're doing is helping, make recommendations on how to improve the design, not necessarily making it the end-all, most creative thing in the world, but you definitely took it there. You took it to where it's very
just pushing it a little bit. Yeah, exactly. I think that's a really good point. I think if you kept going with this, you could do things that are, every time you take a pass at it, and that's the thing about design, right? Like every time you sit down with it, it just gets a little bit better and a little bit better. I think for the time we spent on it and just very quickly kind of making a few quick kind of broad strokes, typography, color palette, we managed to take it somewhere where it potentially looks a little bit more like the sites that are being done out there and a little bit less than, sites maybe 5, even 10 years ago with a lot of just default colors and fonts and that sort of thing.
Well, thank you, Aure. That looks pretty amazing. Why don't we move on to the next one, to Delicious?
Absolutely. So here we have Delicious Improvements. It's making it easier to buy rendered garden products with a custom look for DIY prices.
So what's working with this? Like, let's bring up that first question. What's working with this?
Well,
design?
I think like right off the bat, I know what it is, which is great. I think that, and we'll get into the things that potentially could be improved, but I think the messaging is pretty clear. I think that, it's got a nice area at the top there where you're just kind of very clearly communicating the value proposition. The structure is very clean. You've got 3 clear entry points underneath that main header for the types of products that you want to buy. So it does feel like a very kind of guided experience, which is good. I don't feel like I'm getting lost, which potentially for when I got to the new parts site, I had to read a little bit to kind of figure it out. This I'm kind of pretty clear right off the bat as far as what it is. Should I speak a little bit about what we think could be improved, or do you want to go ahead and...
Yeah, I'll chime in real quick, and then, I think it's bold. It's definitely very chunky. I love the visual language for the icons. They did a very, very nice job in creating that, and, the color palette. Overall, you already mentioned all the things that work really well, so I just big kudos, to Joe Bolton for making it look so good. And also,
all right, Joe.
For James,
James McVaddy.
Yeah,
and
in
Joe.
the UK for doing it. It's
That's
2 of our
awesome.
viewers who rocked it out. So let's talk about the things that can improve. What do you think?
I think the main thing when I saw it is just it doesn't give me a sense of place. Like, you're selling things for backyards and homes, and, I've got this orange field in the background. It's not really communicating that to me. And I think the biggest thing when you're going to the site that's trying to sell you product, I just want to see the product, like sexy barbecues and sexy letter boxes, which I'm not seeing here. I think the icon language is great. And I think there's definitely a place for it. For example, in the logo, I think that's fine. And potentially for some navigation elements or something. But I think showing icons as the primary kind of representation of the product is not the greatest thing to do. So I think if there's one thing I would change about it, besides the color palette, is just having product photography in there.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I think that the iconographic language is adequate. It isn't. It's proven. Research shows that icons are not the best form of wayfinding. That images are actually better wayfinding. And I know that breaks probably Joe's watching, and it breaks his heart because he took a lot of time and effort into making these really cool icons. But again, at the end, you want to do what's right for your customers. You can use the icons as illustrations for the brand, but I don't think that it should be the primary form of wayfinding.
That's such a good point. I think as a designer, you just have to kind of get over it. And, if you do something, you spend a lot of time on it, it isn't working, just got to move past it. I mean, I've spent hours designing stuff that then I was told looked like feet or something unpleasant like that. So, you just kind of have to get over it. So I think you're right. I think the icon language is great. It's just not working the right way for, what it needs to communicate. We're trying to speak product, and we're trying to get people to buy these.
You're trying to get people to know what it is and really like them and buy them. I mean, the other thing, and me and you talked about this before the show, is I don't have an issue that it looks like the launch conference at all. Actually, I think that's fine that it looks similar. The issue is that it might not be the right color for what you're selling.
I agree. That's actually a really good point. I think backyards, I think barbecue, I'm thinking, blue skies and grass. I'm thinking green and blue, even though the orange could be made to work if it was like a sunset
it's not right. The reason why launch is orange is because Jason Calacanis had an orange, or might have still, an orange Tesla.
And I think it's his favorite color.
And he loves that color. It's his favorite color, So that's a very different... There's a reason there, and it happens to be a very obnoxious color, and he happens to be somewhat obnoxious. So it matches the brand, it matches everything really well.
Right.
Here, Brisbane, Australia, yards. I'm thinking you said it, open sky, beautiful green. I don't know. That's what I'm thinking.
I think that's exactly right. Do we want to go ahead and show the after shot?
Go for it. Let's do the after.
Let's do it. Okay, so let me just...
And again, and even if we're not going step by step through the entire process, I mean, it's good to tell our viewers...
Yeah, just sort of like how we got there.
You spend, maybe 30, 40 minutes, on each of these.
Yes, exactly.
Okay? And again, the architecture and the design, holy crap, look at that.
So there's a sexy barbecue. That's what I want to see. Like if I was coming here, I would wow, look at that barbecue. I want that in my backyard. And then there's a backyard, and maybe it's a little bit literal, maybe not. But again, we threw this together really quickly just to give a sense of what we felt, told the story a little bit better. And again, it's about that, like if you see the orange and the icons, maybe there's a little bit of a disconnect. If I see this, it's very clear that you're selling me equipment, for my yard, for my house, and there's the whole barbecue thing. And then at the bottom, you've got actual images of the product. And you said it, Jose, like the images communicate a lot clearer what you're doing as opposed to the icons. So, images of letterboxes, barbecues, fences, that's the product you're buying, the value prop.
Yeah. And these are, sorry to interrupt, I mean, these are not what, Joe, if you're watching the show, or when you watch this, these are obviously not close to what your product is. Your product is very beautiful, it's very designerly.
Yes.
This is, American stuff, which is, comparative to how sophisticated the stuff that you guys have in Australia. This is like an egregious, sin right here to have, these type of barbecue.
I think
and the ones that he has are beautiful.
I think that's actually a really great point. And imagine the fantastic photography you can get if you just spend some time, and you do a proper photo shoot, and you roll the barbecues in, and you take all these great shots, and the barbecues themselves are beautiful. You can get great photography from that. Again, and I think we did this last season when Ryan was here. We just kind of comped something up very similarly, and I dropped some sort of image in there that was not the right product, and it was called out, and it's like, look, we're clear. But I think the point is to communicate that instead of having some icons here, just have a beautiful image. If you have a great product, why not just show it? Why show some icons or something that doesn't properly represent it?
100%. Now, if you have a navigation or a menu somewhere that's, about showing what the type of grills or the type of fences or well, specifically the type of mailboxes you have, you can then potentially show icons. But I would still say that in this product category, photography is really important. Well, here's a question: what if Joe says, "Well, I don't have great photography of my products," and then I would have to go out there and shoot that stuff? What would you do?
Personally, like if he's got access to the product, is the question, does he have access to the product or he doesn't?
No. He has access to the product, but he himself, well, how does he shoot something that looks really good? Do we need to do an episode on how to do product photography?
Potentially, yeah. I mean, I think that, and I'm not a great photographer, but I've had to do it from time to time. And, when you go to art school, they make you do that. Like, don't go out and get stock photography. Like, just take your own shots. You just kind of like get used to it. So I think if you have access to the product, that's pretty much all you need. You can just find a place where you can put like some sort of canvas in the background if that's what you need, if you need to shoot it against white, and just take some shots, just take several. I mean, don't just take one or two, and then just play around with it on your site and see what works and what doesn't. Worst comes to worst, I mean, if you have access to somebody that's a good photographer, that'd be great. I mean, in my case, I'm kind of lucky because my wife likes it a lot and she takes some good shots. So, I can always run it past her and just kind of get a sense of what's good and what's not. But I think that, and I do this for web design all the time, and for photography, it's the same thing. There's so much on the internet that's great, and stuff that you can emulate and just sort of take cues from that. I would just encourage a little bit of exploration and research.
Yeah, and that you brought up a good point. Somebody in your network or somebody that in Brisbane, Joe is going to be a photographer. I guarantee you can't swing a dead cat in Australia without hitting a photographer. And one secret, if you're going to do it yourself and you're going to test it, shoot a lot, which is what you said.
Yes.
The other one is shoot early in the morning, like before 10 a.m. if it's an outdoor shot for those, or shoot after 4 p.m. The difference is going to be that, or like right as the sun is beginning to set, so that you get a softer and harsh light, which happens.
I think that's a really good point.
Get a book on product photography.
Yes, definitely, and if you have beautiful product, focus a lot on the details. I've seen that done a lot with like just really high-end products where they just kind of zoom in into like just very sexy curves or buttons or dials or whatever it is that your product has that are really well designed, and just kind of go from there as well. I think there's plenty of sites that I've seen like Bose and just high-end products that kind of take that approach.
Good point. Look at other product photography sites. So this is really great. I mean, this is
again, done really quickly, but just kind of hinting at where this speaks to me a lot more to what they're trying to do than the orange with the icons.
Let's talk about the logo, and maybe we have a request in the last few minutes or the last few seconds here. It really bothers me if you find his site and click on the social media stuff. The icons for social media really bother me, and the logo bothers me a little bit here. Even I think Delicious Improvements needs to be a little bit bigger and more readable. Whoa. But if you go to the Twitter, or go to the Facebook,
Twitter bird looks like it's got a beer gut.
It might be the whole Twitter bird. I haven't seen it now, but no. Try to go to his social media feed, and the issue that I have with it, while you're finding it, or go to Facebook and just find Delicious Improvements. The issue that I have with them, and Facebook actually looks pretty good. So same thing here. The big blue and very beautiful shot here would actually probably do a lot better than the orange and black. Orange and black are also kind of Halloween-y. But what I was going to say is that it's actually specifically in the Twitter feed, if you can find it. If not, it's okay. Where there's like there's an intersection between the D and the anyway, it's an Illustrator. You're basically getting two paths that are intersecting on top of each other. So without going into too much detail, the point is that I think that the Delicious Improvements should be a little bit more visible, number one, and number two, there should be a little bit of what do you call it? Focus on the typography versus on the icon. And in the icon, try not to overlap that. That's all. If we can't find it, we can't find it. But
I'm trying to go to the Twitter and I'm getting an error. It says, sorry, that page does not
Well,
exist.
here, better yet, what I'll say is that the Twitter icon should be that you should use that icon that the logo is using actually for the Twitter icon against orange or against blue. That's probably the best Twitter icon that you can get versus trying to combine the D with the product. Just keep it product or keep it type, one of the two. Does that make sense?
Definitely.
So what's there right now, that cool mailbox with fire next to it would be great.
Got it. Got it. Yeah, I mean, I think, and we were speaking to that, right? Like, just find proper usage for the iconography and let the rest, when you're talking about the product, use the photography for that.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. So, any closing thoughts? Let's talk about, again, for those for both, Joe Bolton and also for Adam Parrott.
Yeah.
What would we tell them as our next steps are? What should they do?
I mean, I think first of all, they did a great job. I mean, I think the sites are live and they work and they look good. I think, if anything, the couple big things that I notice about both of them is just giving you that story, just that sense of, first of all, a sense of place or just kind of giving you a little bit of context about where you're looking at and just a little bit of uniqueness, quote unquote, around the brand. Those are the biggest things I see, and I guess, a lot of the things that we did to these sites, again, we did it in half an hour. I think essentially you just need to look at stuff that's out there. I do that all the time. Sometimes when I have a quick design challenge like this, I'll go to one of these sites that I browse for great websites and I'll look at a couple things and just take cues from there. And again, everybody's doing the same thing, big typography that's embedded, not just the custom fonts, big imagery, big icons, big buttons, just very oriented towards touch interfaces, which everybody's doing now. So just try to keep that in mind when you do sites. Don't use Helvetica or Arial. Like, we've seen that a million times. Like, if you do that, automatically it makes your stuff look like, it was done 5-10 years ago.
So start using embeddable fonts.
Start using embeddable fonts.
Look at inspiration.
Look at inspiration. Look
standards.
at stuff that's out there. Everything, not everything, but a lot of things have been done and are out there, and there are great sites that kind of compile a lot of things. We pull them up.
What sites do you use for inspiration? Well, and something to note to the viewers also is that, we're not saying wholesale copy other stuff. It's just look at inspiration, A, for inspiration, and B, for what is baseline, meaning what's out there. It's like when you're trying to figure out something to wear, the first thing you look at is, well, what are people wearing in society?
Totally.
You don't want to go out wearing something from the 1970s. Well, okay. You don't want to wear something that's not in fashion. That's different because things come back in and out.
Or something weird like that. But yeah, that's a really good point. I mean, you don't want to copy it outright, but if you go to this site that I pulled up, it's called thebestdesigns.com. There's a title across the top. I love this site. It's got just a very quick gallery, and they update it pretty frequently of cool stuff that's being done. And just look at the thumbnails. Big imagery, big typography. Things aren't contained anymore. They go all the way to the edges of the browser window. There's a lot of just ginormous imagery with text on top of it. You don't see Arial or Helvetica being used in any of these. Here's this cool kind of condensed font here. Here's this other one. Again, same thread I'm seeing here. Cool typography, big images. Things aren't contained inside of little boxes or kind of breaking out. Things are going to the edges of the browser window, etc. So there are some common themes, and that's, I guess, what I try to look at when I come to these sites to get inspiration. Just overall kind of trends without necessarily copying things literally.
I think it'd be great to do an episode where we talk about how to make something unique. And actually, right behind you, the Skool Live on Thursdays, one of the things there you go. One of the things we teach is really how to use the brand attributes to really begin creating a unique visual language. But first, let's talk about Inner Circle. Thank you, Aure. And real quick, I'm going to do some announcements, and then you can wrap up the show. Friday, September 31st, we have Inner Circle, our call for those who are member of Inner Circle. Members of This Week in Web Design's Inner Circle get to share their challenges, and we work together to solve them. You could call and say, hey, I'm having a hard time making a unique visual language for this, and we would work with you on that. If you have any challenges as a freelancer, an in-house web designer, a producer, developer, this is the forum for you. If you want to join Inner Circle, please go to TWI Web Design and join. It's $50 a month or $500 a year. It's a huge amount of value for what you're paying to have myself, as a coach every month. The second announcement is continuing Jose's tour of Awesomeness. We added some dates, and it's exciting. And if you guys want to catch me in person in the U.S., it's brought to you by Media Temple. I'll be tweeting live, blogging, and Instagramming during the tour. Also, check out my new Tumblr, josecaballero.tumblr.com. The first event before you start defining your brand is Saturday, September 22nd, here in Culver City at Mahalo Studios. This is the third workshop that we're doing this summer. The second event is How Interactive Design Conference, September 27th in Washington, D.C. That's going to be pretty damn awesome. Look at the links below if you're watching on the YouTubes. Washington, D.C. on the 27th of this month. month. So if you guys haven't bought your tickets, you want to see me on the East Coast, please do that. October is filling up, and we're having some interesting events that we're adding. AIGA Cincinnati Design Revival, October 4th in Pleasant Hill, Kentucky. That's going to be dang awesome. It's going to be a workshop, retreat, really, really amazing time. If you guys are interested in that, the links are below. Before you start How to Build a Movement, not just a startup, we just added that event up in Santa Cruz at Tech Raising, which is a pretty dang awesome event. It's a weekend barn raising. Imagine going in, pitching your idea, and actually doing it over the weekend with a team of awesome people. Is at Crucio in Santa Cruz. That's going to be on October 19th. And finally, a How Interactive Design Conference on October 29th through the 31st. October 29th through the 31st, and look out for more events as we add them. Again, both How Interactive conferences, I'll be opening and closing those conferences, and we're going to announce some pretty cool stuff next week as we get closer to to the one at the end of this month. So thank you, and again, to Media Temple for the support of the tour. We really appreciate that. And Aure, thank you today for hosting the show and giving me a break to be back here behind the booth.
No problem. This was a lot of fun. We should do it again. And I have Joe Bolton messaging me that he wants to use the design and how can we design the rest of the pages. So
just send them the PSD, yeah.
Definitely.
Thank you, Joe, for watching. It's really awesome to have you watching every week. Just wanted to say thank you. If you want to read the title card and the shout-out, thank you to all the people who make the show possible, Aure. It's coming up right there for you.
Definitely, yeah. We've got Jason, who's the boss. We've got Carolyn, our general manager. Jose, our obnoxious host. And this is me, Venezuelan co-host, Aure.
The host today.
And Brandis Payne, our tech goddess. Michelle Wong, who's a producer ninja. Sophia Lopez, the host wrangler, and Jennifer, who's our makeup person, and everybody, helps us make this show possible. Without them, we could not do it.
And thank you to the Skool, and this Thursday, the Skool Live, every Thursday, the Skool Live, an hour and a half. And Aure, are you accepting the invitation to do a show and tell at the Skool possibly this Saturday?
Yes.
This Thursday, sorry.
This Thursday. I've got a late afternoon call, but otherwise, we should be good.
Yeah, so for those of you who are members of the Skool, Ari's going to be chilling and being the one who's going to be telling and showing his work, show and tell for the Skool. And one last thing, actually, if you're interested in sponsoring the show, we have some really amazing sponsors coming up. There's a couple of opportunities here that you have. One, you too can be a sponsor if you can email me at Jose at thisweekin.com at the network. Jose at thisweekin.com, the network. You can also check out the network site and support the show by clicking on that banner at This Week in Network to shop on Amazon using our affiliate program there. Those are really good opportunities. Aure, take it away and read the final part here.
What have we got? We've got, don't forget
live.
to like us on Facebook and the Googles and the Twitters, and subscribe on YouTube or iTunes. And we hope you will tune in next week when you watch us work.